this year's wrestling program attendance was released, and for the 13th year in a row, Iowa had the highest wrestling program attendance out of every program in the country, every D1 program. Now, Intermat Wrestling reported, official numbers released showed the University of Iowa Wrestling Program led the nation in average and total attendance for the 13th straight season. The Hawkeyes averaged an NCAA best 8,500 fans in 7 home duels and saw 59,000 fans enter the gates at Carver Hawkeye Arena in 2018 and 2019. So this is pretty exciting if you're an Iowa fan. You know, that I was able to bring in so many fans each and every match, each and every year. It's really an environment unlike any other. You know, there are those top, I want to say 5 programs that really have amazing atmospheres where if you're wrestling one of these teams, it's going to be a match that you won't forget. Now, a couple of these programs, let's talk about these top 10. So I have this graphic here talking about the top 10 schools by attendance. So of course, number 1 is Iowa, number 2 is Penn State, and number 3 is Ohio State, number 4 Oklahoma State with 36,000 fans, and Rutgers coming in at 5th place with 40,000 fans, and so on and so forth. So the only school breaking into that top 5 that's not a Big Ten school is Oklahoma State, and 7 out of these top 10 schools are Big Ten. They're in the Big Ten conference. And I think a lot of that comes back to the fact that there's a little bit more funding there maybe. But, you know, Big Ten right now is the largest program in wrestling, the largest conference. They are, you know, really pound for pound the most stacked conference. Not saying there aren't good guys from any other conference. That would be idiotic to say the least. But Big Ten has the highest attendance. So let's look at this a little bit. So let's break this down. So the most home duel matches this year were Penn State and Rutgers. Both of those teams broke into the top 10, and the program that actually had the highest attendance overall was Penn State, 61,000. Now they had 7,700 fans enter each match in Rec Hall. That's where Penn State, of course, has their matches in Rec Hall. There's occasionally one in the Bryce Jordan Center. Iowa has theirs at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and then, you know, just looking at these other schools, Ohio State has theirs at St. John Arena, Oklahoma State, Gallagher-Iba, and then Rutgers, the RAC, so on and so forth. But Penn State, let's look at capacity, because I think that's pretty interesting to look at, is not only are programs filling these places up, but what's the capacity like? So, first of all, at Iowa, the Carver Hawkeye capacity is 15,000 fans, and they're getting about 8,000 per dual meet. Penn State at Rec Hall, their capacity is 6,500, and they're getting 7,700. That's kind of funny, isn't it? And then Ohio State at St. John Arena, I was actually at a match this year at St. John, and I was told that that's not even Ohio State's main facility, but they have the wrestling matches there and a couple of the smaller sports, as the Uber driver told me, which blew my mind. She didn't even know that the Ohio State and Penn State were wrestling that night, one of the biggest matches of the year, but that's neither here nor there. That holds 13,000 fans. Their new arena actually holds 18,000, and they had about 5,000 on average. And then Gallagher-Iba can hold 13,000 fans, and they had on average about 5,200. And you know, it's just great for the sport of wrestling, because for the first time, 24 teams, so one of the top 24 teams, they have announced that there have been, the top 24 teams have had 1,000 fans or more per home dual meet, which is awesome for the sport of wrestling, that these programs are able to pull in all these great numbers. You know, one school that cracked the top 10 was Fresno State, pulling in about 2,400 fans per home meet. That's awesome. You know, that's really cool. Now, another fun thing is, what was the record-setting match of the season? Which fans went to which match the most? So, of course, we had Penn State and Ohio State, massive match. Penn State and Michigan, another big match. We had Oklahoma State and Iowa, one of the other biggest matches, my favorite dual meet of the year, and I'm sure a lot of your guys's. Now, Penn State, Michigan versus Michigan at the Bryce Jordan Center, which holds more than Rec Hall, had 15,000 fans there. That was the largest crowd of the year, and actually the 8th largest wrestling crowd of all time. So that's pretty cool that that match happened. Now, if you're wondering what those other matches I mentioned had, Oklahoma State versus Iowa had 13,000 fans, and then Ohio State versus Penn State had 13,200 fans. They under Oklahoma State versus Iowa, they had 13,800. But awesome for the sport of wrestling that this has happened. Awesome for Iowa that they're able to continuously pull in these numbers of fans and honestly have all these wrestlers and wrestling fans at all these matches. It's really great to see.